Welcome. It's another week and, of course, another episode of this thing called podcast. If it's your first time with us, I'm KJ, your host, and we're going to go ahead and get into this week's episode. So, last month we did Black History Month. It was Black History facts that I provided to you throughout the month. Well, March is Women's History Month. So, I'm back at it again with more facts, but this time it's about women's history. So we're sticking specifically with women's history. Fun fact about Women's History Month, it always has a theme. So this year's theme is celebrating women who tell our stories. I think that's so beautiful because we do have so many great women in our world, in our country, that have did some really amazing things and that have pushed forward to give women the stand and the liberation and the freedom and the power that we do have today. So, just like last month, I'm going to give you two facts. So let's go ahead and get into it. Geraldine Jerry Cobb was the first woman to pass astronaut testing in 1961. She wasn't allowed to travel to space due to her gender. She testified on Capitol Hill in 1962, saying, and I quote, "We women pilots who want to be a part of the research and participation in space exploration are not trying to join a battle of the sexes." End quote. And I think that is so powerful because, again, women have come a long way, and just something as simple as going off to space, we had to fight for that. So beautiful. Let's get on to the next fact. Sally Ride was the first woman in space and the first gay astronaut. Sally Ride became the first woman in space in June 18 of 1983 when she flew on the Space Shuttle Challenger. It wasn't until her death that her obituary revealed that she was gay. So that is really interesting to talk about two astronauts, two women. So even though in 1962, Geraldine testified and actually fought for it, it really didn't become a thing and actually possible until the 1980s. So it still took 20 some years for women to really be able to go into space. But it just shows if you keep fighting, if you keep standing up for what you want and what you really believe, it will happen. You can move mountains. Now, also at the beginning of March is Read Across America weekend. So starting yesterday, March 2nd, all the way till Monday the 6th, there is what I encourage you to do is pick up a book and read. Now, nowadays with technologies and with our phones, you can have phone or books on your phone, things like that, get them digitally, electronically. But I'm old school. So sometimes I like to pick up a hardback book with papers, with letters on the pages, and actually flip the pages and read. And actually just a couple months ago, one of my uncles sent me a book that I have started reading, and it's been a really good read. So once I get done with it, I will actually let you guys know because I do love reading. But I would say this month, let's go ahead and pick up a book and let's read. That's the challenge for you guys. Again, Read Across America began on Dr. Seuss's birthday, which is March 2nd, and it goes until the entire month. It's all dedicated not only to women history, but to reading. I think two important things. Now, the National Education Association did launch this in 1998. So it's something that has been fairly new, I guess you can say, but something that has kept its going over the years. So let's go ahead, challenge you guys, pick up a book this month, read it. Let me know what you think throughout the month. I will make mention of books, keep reminding you guys of that. And in the comment section, if you come across books or know any books that are good reads, let me know. Go ahead and put it down there because I'm always looking for good reads. And I have a couple people that actually love reading books, so I can refer them to somebody if it's not my type of read. So please, I'm all here for it. Now, also in March, because we're talking about reading, we're talking about women's history. Also in March, we have March Madness for the NCAA women's basketball. So that's March 15th and 16th. So that's coming up, March Madness. You hear about it. It's a thing, if you're a sports fan, you're a basketball fan, especially women's basketball. It's Women's History Month. So let's go out, support the NCAA, support the women. Watch a basketball show, just one. Put it on even for a couple hours if it's not something that you do. But let's support our women this month. Let's get to it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up my little sex series that I started a couple weeks ago. Again, if you haven't been following or listening, go back to the first episode. The first episode, which was a couple weeks ago, episode 16, it talks about the basicness of sex, just basic sex information, advice, rules, regulations, things that might not be known, things that should be common knowledge, but some people seem to forget that. And then the second episode, we talked about the benefits of sex. So the psychological benefits, the health benefits, the individual benefits, stress reliever, immune system builder, all of that. So go watch my last 2 episodes if you haven't to catch up. But this episode, we're going to talk about sex trends for 2023. There's a couple of trends that I've either seen to start picking up some movement over the last couple of years, or that's fairly new, that I just want to introduce to you guys. I've tried a couple of them. Some of them I'm going to get into trying, but let me know what your thoughts on them. So sex trends. I have 4 of them for you that I think that you should try to incorporate or start using or think about when it comes to your sex life, trying to advance it, maybe trying to make it more spontaneous, try to make it a little different. Sometimes you want to try some new things with yourself, with your partner. So here you go. First thing, prioritizing what you like during sex. So it's not just being fed what society tells you. So let's get out of that. And I know that's one thing I had to do, especially as a woman. Society tells you so many things and wants to keep you in a box as a woman when it comes to your sexuality. And I'm not saying you should jump out the box and just sleep with anybody, but I am saying that as a woman, it's important to know what you like, and as men, it's important to know what you like, what you don't like, what arouses you, what are your sex kinks and your sex quirks, because everyone's different. So just because society says it should be this way, you might not like it that way. You might want to do it a little different. So learn yourself. That's first. Prioritizing what you want, what you like out of sex, and then it's not all about your partner either. Sometimes just wanting to please the other person and get that satisfaction can be cool, but remember, you are trying to get your own satisfaction out of it too. Because like I said on my previous episode, if sex is done correctly, then both people should be pleased at the end of it. So it is all about you getting your gratification and you getting your one off just like your partner. Second thing, let's continue conversations about sexual and reproductive health. I think that is really important that we keep having these healthy conversations. I strongly believe when it comes to things like abortion and the reproductive system, men should be in reproductive organs and system and how that whole process works. Men should be involved in that conversation because it does take 2 to make a baby. So yes, women, it's our body, but when it comes to creating a child, he is also 50% of that child. So I do believe men should be a part of those conversations, and not saying they should have a full leg in what is being said or a full power control of what's being done, but I think their voices being heard is important. Women should be heard out a little bit more though, because I think men have had such a standing in that conversation and so used to it that they don't really want to hear what women have to say. And I think it is important because when it comes to the health of a woman and a baby, both of those can be affected. So it's not always sometimes about killing an unborn child as it is about what's the best case scenario for the health of not only the mother, but the child in the situation and the mother's future health. Because if for whatever reason, this might not be the time or the situation where this child should be born, we also have to keep in mind that we do things not to hinder or prevent her from having children in the future. And that's really important in a conversation I think people miss a lot, especially when you talk about abortion laws and things like that. It's more, yes, we need to consider the child right there that's unborn, but we also need to consider the mother's health and any future kids she wants to have as well. And then when it comes to just sexual health, I think it's healthy to talk about sex. We're adults here. If you're not an adult, then I mean, you know, you're going to have your conversations, do what you do, but I'm going to say, talk about what you know. If you are not an adult, then let's focus on school. Let's focus on getting you to a productive adult into society before we start having all these type of conversations. But as adults, I do believe having open sexual conversations with friends, with peers, is helpful because then you get to see other sides and other points of view. Sex is a very subjective thing. So it is all about hearing the other person, hearing what people have to say, and then still standing your ground on what you believe. But having an open conversation, I think, is really healthy and can move certain conversations and things along. Now, one of my little fun things that I'm considering trying is incorporating sex toys. I think that's something that is interesting. It's different. There are so many at this point, so many different sex toys that can be incorporated. Some that only pleasure females, others that only pleasure males. You have sex toys that will pleasure both parties at the same time. So I think it's important, and you can even start simple with little toys, butt plugs, things like that, and then move on to maybe bigger things like, dildos and more things that maybe will penetrate. I know with guys, there's different like ball rings and different things, dick, excuse my language, but dick toys and pleasurements that you can use. And I'm not talking about just fake vaginas. There's a wide range of things. And maybe not only just sex toys, but sex games too. Sometimes sex games can help get that arousal where you're not just looking at each other like, okay, ready, set, go. You want to have sex? You can start a sex game. Pull out some sex cards, a sex game, and start getting it started that way. So just another third little thing that maybe we can incorporate into 2013. And then number 4, and I think this is interesting, is something that I am going to look further into doing. Experimenting with sexual wellness products that aren't toys, like a CBD lube or organic supplements. So just like sex toys, there are other things outside of toys that can help enhance your sex, arouse you as a person, and can help with your hormonal imbalances that can cause maybe even erectile dysfunction or maybe you not being in the mood and things like that. So just 4 little sex trends or sex tips, whatever, that again, I see that they are, if not have started in the last couple years becoming a thing, then there are new things that are popping up that I think would be interesting and good for people, even including myself, to get into. So you guys, that is this week's episode. Again, thank you so much for listening, for spending your time with me. Remember to like, follow, subscribe, wherever you're listening to this at. See you guys next week. Have a wonderful weekend.